Thanks to the foresight, research and extensive fundraising by our next group, one of the West Coast's main tourist attractions is now able to offer a more engaging and interactive experience that stays true to the region's history. From the Grey District, here to tell us more is the West Coast Historical Society.
No, and it's not playtime just yet. That was the Shantytown school bell, and school is now in session, and I would ask you all please to raise your right hand. Now, provided you listen attentively and you're prepared to score us with high marks, you may put your hand down. My name is Doug Truman and I'm Deputy Mayor of the Mawhirra Grey District, and it's my very great pleasure to introduce the Shantytown team. It should be remembered that Shantytown started off years ago as a full community effort by the Lions and the Rotary and the JCs and all those community people, and it's remained at its core right through its history with that degree of community support. So don't think of it as a commercial entity. It is very much a part of the community, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Dave first as the chairman of the present board to tell you what it's all about.
Well, Deputy Mayor's sort of dragged us out of the workings to come down here and tell a story. It's a story that our board is incredibly proud of, and it's a story that started over 40 years ago, and Peter will continue to tell you where that come from.
Cheers, Dave. The West Coast Historical and Mechanical Science Society, known as Shantytown, and I dare say a place many of you have visited. Shantytown is a museum first and foremost, guardian to more than 10,000 objects of West Coast history. However, it isn't just what Shantytown's about. It's a unique layout as a gold rush town of the 1880s, and open access to its collection mean visitors get an interactive experience, a far cry from experiencing objects in drawers and behind glass. This has been the attraction for community groups such as the Vintage Car Club, the Gem and Mineral Club, the Art in the Park, and 2 Masonic lodges to call this place home. We provide educational programs to school, diversified income streams by planting trees, mined for gold in the 90s, and built a conference centre. Introduction of conferences and events gave Shantytowns the capacity to complement church weddings and host international bus groups for daily lunches and bid for national conferences. This is all about making Shantytown sustainable, as it receives no funding from council, unlike most museums around the countryside. Income is purely from entry fees and any retail aspects of our daily operation. However, while this sounds good, bear in mind that a 40-year existence for a non-funded museum is outstanding. Challenges were to be faced. Declining visitation for the traditional cultural heritage attraction, coupled with tight economic times for the West Coast, none more so than following the Canterbury earthquakes, that we realised that Shantytown needed redevelopment. This was not a quick fix. The board had multiple considerations to work through: how to fund, what to develop, how to stay true to Shantytown's time period, who would be involved, what would be the point of difference, and how the changes could easily be assimilated into Shantytown's operation.
Welcome to Shantytown Heritage Park, guardians of your West Coast heritage.
Shantytown is a tourist attraction, museum, education centre and conference event centre based in the Grey District. Steam train rides, gold panning, Victorian classroom education, a holographic theatre and a vast array of interpretive information provide the visitor with a memorable and interactive experience. Shantytown is a community-owned, not-for-profit organisation investing its profits back into the organisation, which in turn becomes an investment in the care of the district's history.
I started Shantytown in 1972. My passion and my involvement with Shantytown was with the steam engines. I gave up my very secure job on the railway to be the custodian of the Kaitangata steam train.
Shantytown has been quite special because it's never been reliant upon ratepayer or taxpayer money, and it's been self-funding over the years. And it was started as a community project from Rotary and Lions and the JCs of the time.
They donated and their friends donated thousands of hours, and when I started in 1972 a lot of that volunteer effort was still to the fore, making it run.
It's run by a voluntary board and they have invested a huge amount of time and effort.
It's probably tested my marriage at times. Apart from my paid employment, I'd put in a lot of effort on my days off. Yeah, I have been known to come on Christmas Day and feed the chickens, feed the cats, stoke the fire up to make sure the engine's hot for the Boxing Day start.
The redevelopment of Shantytown has taken place over the last 5 to 10 years. All that redevelopment cost about $3 million in total. And this was, again, raised without having to require input from the ratepayers or the local communities directly.
The main thing that we wanted to do was connect with the community and go back to basics and make sure that we had their interests at heart. So we started with a sawmill.
We had an opening day, it was the biggest thing we'd had for years, and that was an exciting time. Through the sawmill opening, the community was reminded that Shantytown is a community organisation, and it needs the community support as well as the support from the visitors.
Then we just worked around some of the other attractions, modernising them and making them more user-friendly.
We've resulted now in new products such as the holograph theatre, the preservation of steam trains, which are nationally important, the production of a book which was produced on the history of the Chinese.
On school day, there's 50 kids running around and it looks amazing.
I had a particular passion around education, and to make Shantytown relevant for young pupils of today, we set up a Leotech school, learning experiences outside the classroom. Despite long and hard battles with the Ministry of Education, we have managed to achieve some very successful outcomes there.
And that's another community aspect of Shantytown, having the local schools involved, because they go home and get their parents involved, and that keeps that connection alive.
As a board, we have welcomed 2 or 3 organisations out here with their volunteers. They now have Shantytown as a home, and we have the Vintage Car Club with the Masonic Lodge and the Gem and Mineral Club.
Yeah, it's very good to see the board involved in bringing in fresh blood.
Their volunteers work with our volunteers and we achieve a lot more together.
Yeah, they bring a new vitality to the village.
And they add to the stories that we can all tell together.
So after 43 years of voluntary input and community involvement, it really has become the heart of the West Coast community. And long may it continue.
So, the development commenced with a 7-year labour of love for all those involved. The board worked on a strategic plan outlining where we wanted Shantytown to aim for, sought expertise to work on the detailed design of what and how, and decided to concentrate on the most visited areas of Shantytown, the steam, the gold, the sawmill, and the point of difference was to install a 4D holographic theatre, which is the only one of its kind in the country. We and other society members are volunteers, working full-time in our other lives in Shantytown, and this project in particular became all-consuming. We estimate that 3,000 voluntary hours annually between the 6 people on the board alone. But skill sets between us all meant we could contribute with diggers, welders, building design, contracts and our own personal labour, and yes, our paid staff also volunteered in their free time. Challenges included the usual array of funding declines, increasing costs, technology versus tradition, construction around daily visitors and working on aged buildings. We pressed the flesh, provided endless presentations to funders, became proficient with technical needs of projectors and speakers and lights and film production, and reducing thousands of words of research down to 50 or so interpretive panels. The project of writing a book on the history of the West Coast Chinese involved funding from the Chinese poll tax and researching the topic of a different culture, but one that was largely shunned in our history, therefore leaving little easily accessible information for Shantytown to work with. Our outcomes are numerous. The museum is more relevant and exciting. With significant visitation, it makes a direct economic benefit to the West Coast and Grey District. Having become the coast's largest conference centre, both the Grey and Westland districts benefit through accommodation and direct spending. The Education Centre teaches 2,500 students annually from all over New Zealand, and the community are engaged. The Society is the guardian of the West Coast history through storage, restoration and preservation, but also tells the story of the coast place in New Zealand through hands-on, interactive, tactile activities. The success of the Society has not just been a 7-year project, but one that began over 43 years ago and is ongoing. Shantytown is sustainable, relevant, progressive, and a significant contributor to our history and cultural heritage. Thank you.